This video is brought to you by Brilliant. When Rishi Sunak announced that he'd called the election, he was roughly 20 points behind in the polls. Even then, he knew that winning the election would require nothing short of an electoral miracle. Since then, he's been pushed not only from the centre ground by the Labour Party, but also from the right by the Reform Party, now led by Nigel Farage. Sunak has attempted to stem the flow of Tory voters to Reform UK by committing to policies designed specifically to appeal to those on the right of the party and older voters. For example, in the weeks leading up to the manifesto launch, Sunak committed his party to bringing back national service, introducing a quadruple lock on the state pension by promising that the triple lock will not be taxed, and promising to scrap so-called Mickey Mouse degrees. These policies are still amongst the most significant in the manifesto, and are designed to be the ones that catch the most media attention. With the launch of the manifesto on Tuesday morning, we found out about the other policy commitments the Tories are standing on in this election, though. It seems that Sunak is keen to be seen as a safe pair of hands, and as someone who's put the hard work in on the economy and will soon be able to cut taxes. So in this video, we're going to have a look at the main policies announced in the manifesto, how they've been received, and whether ultimately they'll help Sunak win over disaffected voters and begin closing the gap with Labour. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. The manifesto starts with a foreword from Rishi Sunak, with him explaining in literally the very first paragraph how difficult the economic situation has been, and how he should be given credit for building the economic foundations that have allowed him to cut taxes. Now, with the cost of living crisis still ongoing, it's understandable why Sunak has put such a focus on the economy. Only a couple of weeks ago, YouGov found that 52% of voters listed the economy as one of their three main policy priorities. Although this has been declining as a priority, it remains the most important policy area for voters, so convincing voters you can be trusted on it is vital. Sunak's core promise in the manifesto is that he can be trusted to cut tax. And to be fair, he's promised to cut a fair few. Firstly, he's promised to cut national insurance to 6% by April 2027, which means it will have come down from a high of 12% at the beginning of the year. In total, they claim that this will account for a tax cut of around £1,350 for an average worker on £35,000. Longer term, the manifesto says it's the Tories' long-term ambition, when it's affordable to do so, to keep cutting national insurance until it's gone. However, there's no timetable set out for this. They do, however, specifically pledge to abolish the main rate of national insurance for self-employed people by the end of the next Parliament. As expected, the manifesto also pledges to enhance the pension triple lock with what they call the new Triple Lock Plus, which basically commits to guaranteeing that pensioners will never pay income tax on their state pension. It also pledges that there'll be no new green levies or charges in order to, quote, cut the cost of net zero. One notable omission when it comes to taxes is that there is no pledge to cut or abolish inheritance tax, despite this being something that Sunak's government is understood to have been considering for nearly a year. Now, another of the key policies for the Tories is immigration. Sunak promised last year that he'd stop the boats, making this one of his 5 pledges, and something that people have measured his premiership against ever since. He carried the Rwanda policy over from the Johnson government, and made it the cornerstone of his premiership. On this, Sunak has promised a relentless, continual process of deporting those who've crossed the channel to Rwanda, with a regular rhythm of flights starting in July, something he's been unable to do so far. Now, notably, the manifesto leaves open the possibility, without explicitly saying, that the Tories could take the UK out of the European Convention on Human Rights, saying that they will always choose our security if forced to choose between that and the jurisdiction of a foreign court. On legal immigration specifically, having consistently failed to meet their own aims of bringing down immigration, the Tory manifesto pledges to introduce a legally binding cap on migration that will fall every year and cannot be breached. Anyway, while this is clearly designed to appeal to right-wing voters who could be lost to reform, the Tories also appear keen to try and win back people who don't traditionally vote Tory, such as younger voters. For example, they're attempting to persuade younger voters that they're the party that can solve the housing crisis. In the manifesto, they're pledging to deliver 1.6 million new homes in England over the next Parliament, which is, probably not coincidentally, just above Labour's pledge to build 1.5 million. The Tories also say they'll permanently increase the stamp duty threshold for first-time buyers to £425,000 and launch a new Help to Buy scheme for first-time buyers. In addition to these policies, under their section explaining their policies designed to provide young people with a secure future is their commitment to the reintroduction of national service, something they claim will give young people the skills and opportunities they deserve. They also explain here that they'll fund 100,000 high-quality apprenticeships for young people. The Tories explain that this will be paid for by getting rid of what they call in the manifesto poor quality university degrees that leave young people worse off. Whether any of these policies will win young people over is not yet known, but given that only 12% of people aged between 24 and 35 said they'd vote Conservative in the last big YouGov poll, it's going to be difficult to win them round. More widely, while the Conservatives are probably hoping that the manifesto will persuade people that they can be trusted to keep the country running, many of their policies build on things they've already done in government, and they're hoping that when faced with what they refer to as a lack of a plan from Labour and their manifesto, people will opt to go with the Conservatives. However, it just doesn't seem like this is going to happen. Polls are consistently showing the Tories significantly behind Labour, and despite some assuming that this gap would inevitably tighten, it hasn't yet. With the manifesto lacking any big previously unannounced policies, it's unlikely that this will be the thing that results in a significant tightening. Now, understanding exactly what has or is going to happen here can be a little tricky, requiring you to evaluate lots of information from different, often partial sources. It would be sensible then to begin improving your critical thinking skills so that you can keep sharp and better understand what's going on. And well, our sponsor Brilliant.org can help you do just that. Brilliant is the online learning platform that's designed specifically to teach you everything from maths, data analysis, programming, and AI from the ground up. You don't need a fancy degree or to have dedicated hundreds of hours to studying any of these. All you need is a device with an internet connection and a few spare minutes a day. And with your spare few minutes, you'll learn by actually doing, with Brilliant providing hands-on lessons that let you play around with concepts, a method that has been shown to be 6 times more effective than just watching lectures. What makes this even better is that this content is created by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, and more. You can try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days. Just click on the link in the description. That way you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.